Been gone for a few weeks, but I'm back. Training camp's a couple days away. There's a ton for us to touch on. But before we get there, I have to get my thoughts on the Saquon Barkley saga. Will he report for training camp? Will he report for week 1? Will he sit out the entire season? Some answers coming up next on Tommy's Takes.
It's time for another episode of Tommy's Takes, covering all things New York Giants.
What's up, everybody? It's been a few weeks, but Tommy's Takes is back. I just want to say thank you to everybody that's commented, messaged me, reached out, just resting up a little bit before the rigors of camp starts, taking care of some business, but that's over. And while the news may be a little bit old, I still need to get my take on it. The Giants and Saquon Barkley failed to come to terms on a contract agreement. Neither side would budge. Collectively, they could not close a $2 million gap. And Barkley will now be forced to either play on a franchise tag for $10 million or not play at all. According to multiple reports, Barkley is not expected to report to training camp with the rest of his teammates this week, putting into question whether he'll be ready for week 1, whether he'll play the season at all. Barkley tweeted as the deadline came and went, "It is what it is." And in all honesty, that's the same for the Giants. It's next man up. Doesn't matter if you're a quarterback, running back, linebacker. The show does not stop. The bus does not keep moving. And after failing to come to terms, everything is up in the air with Barkley. He did not attend mini camp in June, saying at his youth football camp, he wanted to be compensated respectfully based on his contributions to the team, on the field, and in the locker room. Also said that he was frustrated with stories that have been leaked, that they were untruthful and made him look greedy. Barkley, who turned 26 earlier this year, shined in his first season under new head coach Brian Daboll, rushed for a career-high 1,312 yards, 10 touchdowns, finished as a Comeback Player of the Year finalist, after having his 2020 campaign wiped out to an ACL tear and then not being fully back in 2021. That's what makes this all a shame when you think about it. Coming off a career year, a great year, the locker room is intact, everyone's excited, everyone's energetic, and here we go. And it's been a tough offseason altogether. Giants checked off some big key items early in the offseason. They signed Daniel Jones to a long-term deal, traded for Darren Waller, signed Bobby Okereke to a good deal. They then would go on to extend Dexter Lawrence. But by not getting the deal done, this is risky. Risky for both sides. Giants have allowed the most talented player on the roster to enter contract limbo. And even if Barkley does play the season on a franchise tag, probably going to be bad blood between the two sides. Failed negotiations back and forth. I'm going to detail it a little bit later on in the show, but I think both sides here made some mistakes. You do have a second-year GM that's new to a lot of this, even though he's been trained by some of the greats and Billy Beane and so forth. I do think there were some mistakes made on both sides, but that was the news. Now, here's my take on it. So, this entire process starts at the bye week, and it was bound to go down in flames almost right from the get. The minute Barkley turned down the 2 offers at the bye week and once the season ended, the running back market falling off a Mount Everest-sized cliff, this was going to be headed to franchise tag territory. Let's start with the first 2 offers. We don't know the full details of those offers 100%. We do have a very good idea. First contract at the bye week was estimated to be $12.5 million. Second contract was bumped up to over $13 million, to which I think honestly was a fair contract. After that, it was tough because when you looked at how they handled this from both sides, Joe Schoen tries to get out in front of it, tries to get 2 deals on the table, tries to sign him before the offseason starts, and anything crazy gets out of hand. Didn't work. And I remember when that happened, when we got the news about that happening, the 2 offers being turned down, I said, you know what, this is probably going to turn to some rough territory. Anyways, the final offer right before the deadline was about $22 million in guaranteed money, $11 million in annual salary. And you know what? Was turned down again. And I happen to think bad blood on Barkley's side. If you watch some of Barkley's interviews, this off season, you could kind of see why this deal was very difficult to get done. Why I think Barkley took a wrong stance in some of these interviews, in all honesty. And I'll get to that. But I thought the offer was fair. When you look around the NFL this offseason, you have Josh Jacobs, last year's leading rusher for the NFL. Couldn't come to terms with the Raiders. He's playing on a franchise tag or not playing on a franchise tag. You have Miles Sanders, formerly of the Eagles, rushed for 1,200 yards last season, looked like a franchise back. Eagles wanted nothing to do with him. He says goodbye to the Eagles, and he gets a deal roughly $6 million a year. Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, rumors of trades. These are the top backs in the NFL involved in trade rumors. These are your franchise backs. If you go back 15, 20 years, these are your Terrell Davises, your Curtis Martins, right? Whether you want to debate the talent, this is that type of player. And this is why I think Saquon Barkley took the wrong stance in the interviews this offseason. He talked about feeling misled in his role last year, that he was going to be utilized as more of a receiving back. That part I didn't understand. Things changed. Giants receivers got injured. The offensive line didn't play well. Pass blocking, so they had to run the ball. They found success out of 11 personnel running the ball. So they continued to do that. And they had their best season in a decade. I don't think he was misled there. I think things changed. I think during the first couple of games, they said, hey, you know what? We could run the ball effectively, especially out of 11 personnel. So he felt misled there, felt undervalued by the front office. This one I don't fully disagree with, even though I do think the contracts were pretty fair. You can't really put a price on a player and how they feel they're worth. You can't tell someone, don't go get your money, don't maximize, don't get what you need. So this one, I kind of toss it up. He starts responding back to the trolls on Twitter. Says he's thinking about holding out the whole season to show everyone how valuable he is. Now, let me preface this. I don't think Barkley is wrong for feeling this way at all. He's homegrown. He's fought through devastating injuries. He's been the only reason to watch the New York Giants for the last 3-4 years. I don't think he's wrong for feeling that way. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all want to feel valued, appreciated for our hard work. Like I said, he's done everything in his power to help this team win. 1,300 yards last season, 12 touchdowns, played well in the wild card game, broke a long run in divisional game, right? Even though some thought he should have broke it out. But I'm sure Josh Jacobs felt the same way. I'm sure Miles Sanders felt similar. Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott. Difference was they're not all going on TV and giving interviews and, putting the dirty laundry out there. And unfortunately, in a business, you have to leave your feelings out of it. And I think this stood in the way of getting a deal done. I really do. You can never tell anybody their worth. Barkley said he feels like he's the best running back in the league. Who's to disagree with him? You could talk stats. You could break down, some of Barkley's ultra analytics, I'll call them, are not as good as his regular rushing numbers. But who's to debate that, right? I think him getting in front of the media, I think him putting everything out there really created a divide, really made this an emotional negotiation, and made this hard for both sides to get it done. He had $22 million guaranteed staring in his face right on that table with a running back market that is, to put it nicely, uncertain. I think that was a big part. But I want to go through some possible scenarios here for Barkley. What could happen, what might happen, what should happen, what I think will happen, come training camp, regular season. And let's start with scenario number one. To me, this is the doomsday scenario for Saquon Barkley, Joe Shane, the New York Giants, Brian Dable, go down the line. Barkley sits out the entire NFL season, right? This is doomsday scenario for both, in my opinion. This Giants offense, still, with all the signings in Darren Waller, Parrish Campbell, in my humble opinion, is in desperate need of offensive playmakers. You now lose your best offensive playmaker on the team. I have no doubt Mike Kafka, Brian Dable, this coaching staff could still engineer a good offense, but Barkley was a major key piece. His void is going to create a big challenge for this offense. You don't know how the offensive line is going to work out. You drafted John Michael Schmidt. He's a rookie at center. Typically a tough position to learn as a rookie on the fly starting. You traded for Darren Waller, dynamic pass catcher. We all know the good stuff. Hasn't been healthy for a couple years. You still don't have that number one wide receiver. You have a quarterback in Daniel Jones who has progressed, still needs to progress more. He's played his entire career with Barkley to this point. And the scenario for Barkley here, in this scenario, we'll call it 1, the doomsday, is even worse. And this is why I don't understand what advice he got from his agents. First and foremost, under the CBA, the Giants could tag Barkley again next offseason if he holds out. Puts him right back into square one. Let's say the Giants are frustrated with Barkley and they don't want to tag him. They don't want any parts of him. And they say, hey, you're free to go. Thank you for your service here. The running back free agent market has gotten worse and worse and worse every single offseason. I know salary cap has gone up. It will continue to go up. It will continue to open up more money, but it hasn't for running backs. So you'll be coming off a year, Saquon Barkley, you'll be coming off of a year, no football activity. You could work out as much as you want. It's not the same as playing in the games. And you're going to bank on getting a better deal than you were just offered, $22 million guaranteed, in that combustible market after sitting out a year. To me, this is the lowest percentage that I think of an outcome that will happen. In all honesty, I don't think this is going to happen. But if it does, I think it's the worst for Barkley and the New York Giants. I really do. I'd be shocked if this happens. But Barkley said in his interview, and this is the problem, when as an NFL player you go out and you do interviews and you go out in the media and you air dirty laundry, you leave a lot for discussion. You leave even more up for interpretation. And he said he has thought about holding out for the season. So if he's saying that, you have to take that into account. You cannot say that's not going to happen. Now, again, doomsday scenario, I think that's the last probable outcome, but it's still on the table, and it still will screw over the New York Giants. It will screw over Saquon Barkley, and I don't think he's going to get a contract in 2024 anywhere near what the Giants offered him. I could be wrong. He's an immense talent. He's a great player off the field, great teammate, has done everything the Giants have asked, but the market is too combustible. Just is. I mean, it's just such a risk to take for Barkley. But scenario 2. By league rules, Saquon Barkley has until the Tuesday after Week 10 regular season games to sign the tag or come to a 1-year deal with the Giants. After this, if he doesn't do it, he's ineligible to play the rest of the season. If the Giants are still in contention at that point, obviously Barkley provides a huge, huge boost. But does Joe Shane just tell him at that point, no thank you? This is a risky play for Barkley. Maybe just as risky as sitting out the whole season. You're kind of tossing that, ping pong ball back and forth, seeing who's going to budge. I think this scenario is unlikely. Now, scenario 3, I think is the most likely. It's coming right up. Drop. Now, scenario 3 for Saquon Barkley and the New York Giants. This scenario, I think, will happen. Barkley shows up week 1 versus Dallas, sits out training camp, doesn't practice, shows up week 1 ready to go. This scenario does scare me for multiple reasons. Barkley has been injured for a good portion of his career. You could work out all you want. You could post all the workout videos there are. You could be doing sprints, push-ups, bench press, whatever you want. It's not the same as football practice. It's not the same as football action. When you look at it, I mean, there was a chart put together by the 33rd team, which they charted all players that have held out training camp the last 10 years. There really honestly wasn't a big budge in improvement, falling off, so to speak. There was a drop off in overall player value. But this is risky also because you come in week 1, bad blood feelings still going to be there. There's no deal. Nothing has changed. And you're going to show up. You haven't practiced. You haven't been on the football field. This is going to be a tough one. But I do think this is what's going to happen. Because Barkley has talked about, I want them to see my value. I want them to see what I'm worth. So he could possibly want them to go out through the preseason, struggle on offense. But doesn't matter. The deadline is passed. To me, best case is for Barkley to show up week 1 of training camp, ready to go. If he sits out training camp, it is what it is. The running back market has dictated the value here. It would be nice because if he shows up for camp, he has time in his second year in the Kafka offense to get some balance, to get some consistency, changes, installs, to catch up on that stuff. You don't want to catch up on that stuff week 1 against Dallas prime time when the real bullets are flying. Giants just went out, signed free agent running back James Robinson. He'll fill in if Barkley misses some time. So these are the scenarios. Like I said, sitting out the entire year, lowest probability. Highest probability is he shows up week 1 versus Dallas, and you kind of cross your fingers. You hope he doesn't get hurt. That would be the last thing you want. He suffered a stinger last year, didn't miss any time. He's missed 20 games from 2019 to 21. To just jump into the office week 1, no practice. Like I said, no matter how many videos of working out and exercising, not the same. So it leaves a lot of questions. Where's the offense at by week 1? Is Matt Breida carved out a role? Rookie Eric Gray, are they playing well in unison? Does it deter that, right? You have Gary Brightwell. You have Jay-Sean Corbin is still running backs on this roster. So there's a lot of ifs and ands in here. A lot of question marks when you dig into this. I mean, are there side eyes from teammates? How is the locker room? Is the locker room divided from this? One big key for Joe Shane last season was the locker room and Brian Dable. This locker room was in unison. Players like Jihad Ward, bringing everyone together, buying in, buying. That buy-in is critical. That buy-in is key. So, we'll see what happens with that. Listen, I think he shows up either week 1 or he shows up for day 1 of training camp. That's my stance on it. It's an unfortunate situation. The website SpotRack has the running back position value-wise 27th out of 30 positions. Very tough when you look at it. You have the running backs ranked basically with long snappers now as far as value. This was tough for Joe Shane as well. Second-year GM, player that's loved on the field, player that's loved in the locker room, player that's given his all to the New York Giants. But at the same time, you're a new GM, second-year GM. You don't want to go out there and pay over market value for a player. You don't want to be that guy. And that's something Joe Shane has to think about. And I know for a fact that that's something that played into a part here. You have to be very, very careful. Very, very careful when you look at something like this. Overpaying and paying a player based on their history as far as what they mean to the team. And I did want to touch on a couple other things here. So, first and foremost, this has nothing to do with the disease of me, as stated by Michael Lombardi when talking about winning breeding selfish behaviors in the Giants locker room. This has absolutely nothing to do with Daniel Jones' contract. There were several avenues of ways to make money and bring money in and move players around. Move contracts around. You could have extended Leo Adoree to free up some money for Barkley. that's ridiculous that it had anything to do with Daniel Jones. At the end of the day, the money aspect of this situation, it's all asset allocation under the salary cap. There's charts, there's graphs, and I know sometimes people want to, screw the charts and graphs and this is our guy, but there's asset allocation under the salary cap. Joe Schoen drew a line in the sand. Yes, he took the offer off the table for Barkley. I disagreed with that. I don't think an offer should have been taken off of the table altogether. I think there always should have been some type of offer there for Barkley. But at the end of the day, again, second-year GM, he's learning. As far as Barkley, he set a price in his mind. Can't be mad at somebody for putting a value on their services. So there shouldn't be hard feelings towards Saquon from Giants fans. This is a business. Business does make sports feel difficult to enjoy sometimes and consume. I do believe mistakes were made on Saquon's agent's part. Saquon tried to change things up. Adding agents towards the end there, trying to make something happen. CAA, that didn't work. But at the end of the day, there were 3 deals offered to Saquon. I think fair market deals. The first 2 were above market deals, fair market deals, my opinion. But it didn't happen. And leaking information, another thing I wanted to touch on, does happen. It's a part of contract negotiations. Not very tactful. Doesn't make things easier to negotiate. I'm not a big fan. So I think, like I said, a couple mistakes made on the Giants' part. And then ultimately, once Saquon, goes out in the media and says, I'll show them, I'll sit out, I'll do this, and that. That's it. That's really bad blood, man, and just makes it difficult. Makes it harder to close that gap. And when people say, oh, it was only a $2 million gap, and how could they not fix this? How could they not close that gap? Because they didn't want to. Simple. Joe Schoen said, here's the price. Here's what I want to pay you. Here's what I think your value is. Saquon said, that's not what I think my value is. That's not what I'm going to take. And that was it. So now you move forward as the New York Giants, right? You go as if Barkley's not going to show up this season. And he did. Signed James Robinson. Drafted Eric Gray in April's draft. They went and they made changes. They're going to go forward with it now. You got to hope Daniel Jones takes that next step. Hope that these new pieces, Darren Waller, Parrish Campbell, whoever it is, Jeff Smith, whoever you want to throw in there, Crowder, they could gel. They can get together. But this is the bottom line. And this is the Tommy's takes of this right here. Both sides took a very, very risky position here. If you're the Giants and Joe Schoen, yes, you made the playoffs last season. Yes, you had early success. The offense never really cranked. Towards the end of the year against bad defenses, they did play well. You hope they built some confidence to carry over into this season, but they did not play well. Passing game was towards the bottom, and plus 20-yard completions, plus 40-yard completions, passing yards, you name it. So you took a really, really risky choice here if you're Joe Schoen. You're putting it on Daniel Jones' shoulders. You're putting it on a veteran and a rookie's shoulders to run the ball. You're going to hope this offensive line could step up. Offensive line could be a huge problem again this year. If the younger players, Evan Neal, John Michael Schmitz, don't step up, I think they will. I think the Giants' offensive line will be much improved. But you took a big risk if you're the Giants. Now, some will say, that's football. You prepare, you move on. It's a business. There's a value to a position. Running backs are not as important anymore. It's a passing league. Defense is keying on the pass. They don't care about running backs, on and on and on and on. That's all fine and dandy until you get out there week 1 and the bullets start flying and you don't have one of your best playmakers. Now, if you're Saquon Barkley, I think you took an even bigger risk. You're risking not playing the entire season. You're risking that the Giants won't tag you again in 2024 if you sit out the entire season, part of the season, or you come back, you get hurt, fake an injury, which someone else threw out there, not Barkley or his team, someone else threw out there as a possibility. you risk a lot. You're rolling the dice that the running back free agent market in 2024 is going to have a booming effect because there's more cap room. Even though analytics, history, all the data you can find on running backs getting a second contract over 25 points to them going on a steep decline shortly after. Both sides taking a major risk, and we're going to see what happens. That was my thoughts on the Saquon Barkley saga. Happy to be back on relocation right now, getting some stuff together, so pardon the appearance, but I am back. Giants training camp is back. Giants football is back. We're going to get it. Please hit that subscribe button. Let's get back on our chase to 1,000 subscribers. We were off for a few weeks. Let's get it back. To everyone that's been sending me thoughts, sending me comments, appreciate you, love you. I'm good, I'm okay, I'm here, and I am ready to go for this Giants season. But for now,